Scott RIEHS or RIEHS?
RIEHS, like Reese's peanut butter cups.
Like RIEHS, yep. I should have known that. Scott, Community Project Works. You're a filmmaker. I see you've been doing some stuff as far as the quarantine goes, and making COVID compliant, friendly productions.
I'm doing my best.
Doing your best. So Scott, tell me a little bit more about Community Project Works, a little bit more about yourself, what you do and what you've been up to.
Yeah, my name is Scott RIEHS. I'm a producer based out of Brooklyn, New York, and I'm a co-owner and trainer at the Community Works Project, which is our organization. It's a set safety cooperative that was founded here in Brooklyn, New York, early in the summer, late spring, early summer 2020. And I've been running set safety trainings on Zoom for the last 6 months or so. And that job has transitioned into me getting back on set this fall, working in COVID compliance on different types of film shoots for film and commercials and television. So that's the short answer, but there's a lot to unpack with that.
Yeah, I think you know what? Now that I think about it, I know exactly how we're connected. I got my COVID compliance. I think I got my COVID compliance with you. I think you taught it with somebody else with Health Education Services.
Well, I wasn't through Health Education Services. Health Education Services is this amazing organization based out of LA that has been doing COVID compliance officer trainings, across the country. But there's lots of different, listservs and different emails and things, and different, reaching out to different people who've gone through there. So we must have crossed paths through the email list afterwards.
Must have crossed paths through that. So
yeah,
absolutely.
It's a small world.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you been back on set?
I have been back on set. Yeah, and I just finished a shoot this past week. It was a 4-day shoot here in Brooklyn, New York, for a documentary TV show. Lots of different, talking heads, about 17 interviews over the span of 4 days, with a minimal crew. So I guess, from this, my job was to make sure everyone got to set, safely, that everyone had been tested ahead of time, that everyone was on the same page of how we were going to plan to act with each other on set, so there were no surprises. I like to see if I can pick out what sort of red flags might happen in relation to who's going to be on set ahead of time. So when we get there, instead of just scolding people or saying you can't do this, I offer alternatives. And then suddenly everyone's like, oh, okay, someone else has thought about this, like I can do this, we can work together, we can get to the end of the day, we can get home safe. So I think that's, the big thing about the COVID compliance department. It's doing a little bit of extra work ahead of time to be able to communicate directly with who you're going to be working with, to get to know them a little bit better than I think I normally would before showing up on set as a production coordinator or a production manager. And then offering alternatives when issues come up, and having that ready in your back pocket. So there's no conflict.
Before COVID, were you it sounds to me like you were an AD or a production manager. Definitely.
Yeah, I was all over the map. I worked as a, I've done a little bit of everything. Before COVID, I had a full-time producing job at a company called UVisit. So we made virtual tours for college campuses and universities, and some of my favorite clients were tourism boards and companies that were doing really elaborate recruiting videos, all in 360, for people to either look at it in a headset or online. So I spent about 4 years on the road, traveling around the country, field producing, these small shoots, in almost every state. It's with a great group of people. And then I transitioned out of that to do more producing freelance, to develop some of my own projects. And that came to a screeching halt last spring.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So And then I found this group of people who I've are now my close collaborators that I met at a random meet and greet on Zoom that was organized by another co-op called the Sound Co-op.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sound Co-op is a group of also worker owners who are sound mixers here in the city. Also didn't have a lot of work to do this past spring, so they started holding a series of Zoom meetings to talk about safety culture and what they could do to help promote safety culture moving forward, to help people keep safe. And based off of those conversations with some new friends that I made through the Sound Co-op, we founded the Community Works Project and brought on board a fantastic safety trainer, across industry safety trainer. Their name's Christina Fox. And Christina and I, as well as our CEO, Phil Shipman, started taking cross-industry safety trainings and started to focus on how we can tailor these specifically for set safety for production professionals with COVID-19 in mind. And we were off and running. So we've been training different freelancers as well as full production companies and media companies, fairly consistently from July till now. And eventually it expanded. We brought another a producer on the West Coast. Her name is Rochelle Savory. She's a fantastic line producer as well as a COVID compliance supervisor based on the West Coast. And she helped us develop a COVID compliance officer training as well. And through that group of people that we started training, we have it's a really amazing group of people who I get to talk to every couple of weeks on our just random Zoom meetings that we have with each other, just to keep each other up in the loop as to how we can support each other, what we can do, and how we can help prepare each other to be able to stay sane while we're doing this job.
Yeah, I mean, especially the sanity and the frustration of not being able to create, not being able to work, but finding that, finding the tools, finding the agility and the tools and the means to make this work,
Mm-hmm.
to keep working and to make productions work and to think outside the box. That's been my biggest kind of flagship mentality throughout this whole thing, is thinking outside the box and making things work in a time where it's if this thing is not working, we have to still make it work so that we can work, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people never did stop working. I mean, the TV commercials didn't stop playing this past spring.
Mm-hmm.
All of those productions, they had to find different ways to be able to produce, whether it's virtually, or through Zoom, like what we're doing. This is a fantastic engineering control. This is a great way to stay isolated from a pathogen.
Yeah.
This is right in there, and that is something that we talk about in our safety trainings. If you, it's a great way to be able to keep working. This is us doing this right now is a lot more effective than us meeting in person wearing PPE.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So. It's all part of it.
I mean, we're too good looking to have that mask cover our faces. So we're doing it on Zoom, and the audio and the video is just fine. And my lighting's not good today. I actually try to retool the studio a little bit.
I scrubbed the front of my my dishwasher today just because I knew it was going to be in the background.
Exactly. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about Community Works and what kind of productions are you focusing on? Because just based on that sound, that branding, it sounds like it's nonprofit stuff. But what kind of productions or pieces do you focus on with Community Works?
Well, with Community Works Project, we focus on, I guess, the trainings that we've had the most success with, I think, that have been really the best, have been producers who work with a group of freelancers often. That they have a group of people that they work with all the time, and they've bought out one of our trainings and then put down the money to be able to buy it out, and then invite the people that they like to hire with in order to be able to get them all trained. So I think those are the ways, the ones that we've been able to really have a great amount of success with. So we have, we've had several different producers and EPs that have had connections either with me prior to Community Works Project or through the Sound Co-op, and we were able to pitch our training to them and have them help us do the marketing to be able to bring in people to help fill in the classes.
So Community Works is training other producers, videographers.
We'll train everybody. These trainings are for cross departmental. I think a production coordinator who works in an office or who works with legal will learn just as much from our trainings as a PA or a grip or a gaffer or a DP or someone who is in the trenches on set, or whether we've had a lot of people in the locations departments come through our trainings. And we didn't invent any of the things that we really talk about. All we do is we talk about it in a production frame of mind. And I think, and that's what's, I think, really separates our trainings from lots of other trainings out there that are talking about COVID.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. So you're back on set. And what else have you produced? I know that's a lot of training. Are you doing the training videos? Is it training video packages, or is it?
Well, most of the trainings that we do is all interactive on Zoom.
Okay.
And we focus on popular education, which means it's a lot of questions and interactivity back and forth. We generally don't even record our Zoom trainings because so much of it is conversational and breakout rooms. And so I like to go into a training knowing that I'm going to try and learn as much as possible from the people in the room as they're learning from me, because everyone has experiences they're bringing to the table, and so if we can get a room of 15 people in a Zoom, and a quarter of them are producers and a quarter of them are in camera department, another quarter of them are production coordinators, and the other quarter are locations. I mean, this is going to be that's a solid group of people to be able to work with. And it's been great because we've been able to do some more advertising on some other COVID compliance Facebook groups and some other listservs that have brought people from different markets around the country to be able to be in our trainings all together. And so now we have someone who works, on commercial productions in Houston is learning about what it's like to work on a backlot in Atlanta, with commercial producers in LA, and then somebody who works in Portland and someone who works remote in Cleveland, and they're all in the same room together. They all get each other's contact info afterwards. And we've gotten people who have been able to hire each other for regional jobs based off of working each other in our trainings. And
that's what this last year has really kicked in overdrive, was this interactive virtual. I've never gone so overboard on networking and reaching out and just I was on your list. I was on your listserv. I subscribed to your email.
Yep.
And I just said, screw it. I'm just going to reply to this email, and I did that to a whole slew of other these emails, these other producers, voiceover actors, production companies that I'm a part of their listserv with. And I just started replying straight to the emails. I was going ballistic on LinkedIn and just reaching out to everybody and saying, listen, this is the time is now to just, hey, I got a podcast, man. You want to just come on and just talk shit and
here we are.
And complain or brag about what we have going on, complain about what we don't have going on anymore. And like you said, this is an opportunity with your community works. Mm-hmm. This is an opportunity for people to just reach out, network, and talk to some folks that may have not have had time to talk to us before. And it's not because, a lot of people get this bad impression that they're too snooty, they're too high and mighty. Listen, they might just not have the time. If you're actually on set, You can't be on the phone, you know, it's a
Yep.
quiet set. It's a lockdown set. You got to like turn your phone off, you know, action cut, that sort of thing, reset. But now it's like, you know, a lot of folks are behind their computer with a lot more free time, a lot less productions. And now it's, you know, a totally different, you know, thing is like all these master classes are being produced now.
Yeah.
All these professionals that you never knew existed or never knew would have the time to do such a thing is now everybody's coming out with their own master class on cooking. You know, there's 7 different actors doing acting master classes. There's 17 different there's 17 different musicians, you know, Deadmau5 and there was somebody else, I forget, the couple of EDM producers and all these folks doing master classes on EDM, on guitars, on drums. There's like a business mogul doing a master class on entrepreneurship. There's who's the angry cook? He's got like 17 different cooking.
Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay did a master class on cooking. You know?
Gordon Ramsay, I got a beef to
okay.
to pick with him. You know, I Gordon Ramsay's great. You know, I learned I've been cooking my face off. You know, the last, you know, ever since the pandemic began. I've cooked more in this year than I have in my entire life.
Oh yeah.
And Gordon Ramsay taught me earlier this year that finally the correct way to chop an onion. Whereas like I can chop an onion in like 10 seconds now. Thank you, Gordon Ramsay. I get it now. I know how to actually do it. And then I'm done. I never have to like think about it again. But then I watched him, he tried to teach me how to cook a turkey for Thanksgiving. And I followed some of his advice a little too closely and realized that I am not a French chef. I don't need that much butter in anything. It really turned out very poorly. So
hey, listen, I learned how to carve a turkey off a 3-minute YouTube video.
Yep.
It was like that. And okay, so granted, we had a pre-cooked butterball, so it only needs like an hour and a half in the oven. But once you take that thing out, now what, right? So 3-minute YouTube video on how to carve a turkey, and it showed like the little sections and the little joints, and then you got your wings, you got your legs, and then you got your breast, and that's like the nicely cut sections, and then yeah. So I mean, it all depends on who you're talking to, man.
Yeah.
a French cook. A French, what is it? A 5-star French cooked turkey for Thanksgiving, or just a.
I gotta say though, you know, a lot of Gordon Ramsay stuff online, I was shocked at how pleasant he was. Yeah, he feels a little coked up still and kind of doing his thing, but he was, you know, smiling. He wasn't yelling at anybody. You could tell he's enjoying what he's doing.
It was probably by himself.
Yeah. So.
Or you know, like maybe a camera op, maybe some sort of tech in there, alone with him. But yeah, when he's dealing with inexperienced people, I mean, I guess that's a gimmick. It's got to be a gimmick.
Well, I don't know. Have you ever worked in a high-end kitchen before? Have you ever, you know, been in, you know, like close proximity with a fancy chef? Because I have, and it seems really familiar to me when I hear him yelling at people like that.
Maybe not that much, but I worked at a restaurant where they did call the chefs, what is it, sous chef and the other head chef and sous chef.
Yeah,
they did have that. They did have that at this restaurant. It wasn't that. I don't think it was that intense though. But
I lasted 5 months in a restaurant. That's as long as my restaurant career was. I was a food runner at a high-end restaurant right out of college here in New York. And you know, the food runner is the one that gets the front row seat of all the action, because the runner is the link to the past in the kitchen.
I was a food runner too.
Yeah, so you get it. You know, you got to know everything. You got to know all the how everybody works, and you got to be able to communicate what's going on there to the people in there without having them freak out, and then get that freak out answer and tell it to the surface out there without having them freak out.
Right.
And you got to interact with all of the guests because you're the one putting the food down and answering questions. You know, like the food runner is the magic link that makes the high-end restaurant work. Yeah. But I had a couple really scary situations where our chef got so angry, I thought his veins were going to pop out of his forehead and just die on the spot, and it was terrifying.
Yeah, that movie, I can't remember the name of the movie, but with Brad. Oh crap! He did the voice of Rocket Raccoon. He was in Limitless. He was in
Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Cooper. Yeah. So there was that Cook movie where he was like this superstar chef.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it right now. It's
Really?
was it Cooked? Cooked? Is that
I think
what
it was. I think it was Cooked.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had John Favreau did a movie called Chef,
which I just saw on my Netflix queue last night. That's what I was thinking about, but that's not that.
But it's not.
That's the one where he gets a food truck. Cooked is the one with
yeah.
Bradley Cooper. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is called Cooked, because you know I guess it's a metaphor on life. You know, he got cooked in life, and what the heck? No, it's not cooked. What am I doing? Burnt. That's what it was. It's burnt out.
Okay, burnt.
Because he was burnt out as a chef.
I was close. Cooked,
yeah.
Burnt, right.
Yeah, and I mean that really was like a fan. Yeah, it was burnt, and that was a really good, you know, view into that French cuisine, high end. You know, what is it? That Michelin is it? So Michelin Tires has a restaurant magazine.
Yep.
And so and it's the restaurant magazine of all restaurant magazines.
Yeah.
But it's Michelin Tires.
I remember when I first realized that it's the same Michelin family that does the tires, and I was just like, is that for real? And then like on the back of the Michelin guide is the tire guy.
It's the tire guy, right?
Yeah.
It's baffling. There's another thing like that.
And yeah, it gets even more complicated because the Michelin guide is on a 3-star rating, and the New York Times is on a 4-star rating. So those are the two like kind of go to, at least, you know, here, you know, in New York, you know, you got your Michelin restaurants and you got your New York Times review, you know. So just because like a 1-star Michelin restaurant might be a 3-star restaurant in the New York Times.
Right.
There's an equation that you can kind of, you know, getting a Michelin star is just like, you are amazing. You have made it as a restaurant. You know, and there aren't many 3-star Michelin restaurants in the world, you know, and it's like the same thing with a 4-star restaurant in New York Times. You know, there's only, I don't know, there might have only been a dozen ever.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's funny you mentioned, you know, New York Times and like the press and how they can destroy people. Me and the wife just decided to start watching Veep.
Okay.
From the beginning, and there is, you know, a number of Washington Post characters, these characters in the show that work for the Washington Post, and it's just the power that they hold over the vice president's staff, and I think it was we were watching the second ever episode of Veep, and she was supposed to make an appearance at a frozen yogurt shop. You know, it was a Black-owned frozen yogurt shop. It had been there for decades. You know, it's like a staple of this fictional DC community. But she was supposed to make an appearance. The press was there. She was running late for whatever. I don't want to, you know, give all these spoilers. And the guy was losing his mind and destroying these staffers. And you're right. It's like Michelin Tires, of all people, have a restaurant review magazine, a restaurant book. And then the New York Times, you know, could destroy. There was also a Curb. You know, there was that Curb episode of that guy that does 2 thumbs up to restaurants, and Larry David was freaking out because he was supposed to review the restaurant. Larry David and some partners were like opening up, and then it's one of those crazy Curb episodes, but.
And then I guess, you know, this was more prevalent before COVID because there were actually movies coming out in the theaters. But, you know, the whole, fanboys or the opposite of fanboys, you know, sabotaging Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic and, you know, putting negative reviews on things just to make the IMDb score go lower before a movie comes out. I mean, that's just awful. You know, like, it's just like, why? I don't understand. I don't understand. You know, I don't understand why, you know.
These are probably like implants. These are probably moles put in by competing studios, competing artists, vengeful maybe, or it's all marketing ploys so that this one film. There was that film, Lady Bird, about the teenage girl that it would have gotten a 100%. Apparently, it's one of the greatest movies ever made. One of the most honest, most poignant films of a girl's, maturing, puberty, prepubescent, into adulthood, whatever you call it. And it would have gotten 100%. But some schmuck had to go on Rotten Tomatoes and give it a low rating purposefully.
I like Lady Bird. I wouldn't give it the Oscar, but it was definitely a really, really great movie.
But apparently on Rotten Tomatoes, there was this whole YouTube outcry against this reviewer that's
funny.
Gave it a low one. Had he or she not given it such a low rating, it would have gotten a 100% purely fresh, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. But somebody had to go in and throw a wrench in there, and they said they try to track the person down. No basis behind this bad review, none whatsoever. No real basis anyway.
I still find myself every once in a while going back and reading Roger Ebert's old reviews for some of my favorite movies, or I see a movie online that I hadn't, an old movie, or something that's for whatever reason I just never watched before, never saw before. I'm like, I wonder what Roger Ebert thought about that, and I go back and I read it. His stuff is still the best. His stuff is still the best, and there's nothing better than reading an old Roger Ebert review and reading the review and knowing while you're reading it that he was having a really bad day, because that man knows how to let out his crankiness on a movie like nobody else. And it is fantastic reading. It's like, and I can't really, maybe it hurt the movie, maybe it didn't, but he writes an enjoyable thing for people to read. And I think that's what people, there aren't many reviewers today that write something to be enjoyable. It's either like, I have a bone to pick, or this, and it's not about, I don't know. He always made people think when he wrote, whether or not he was right or not. And I miss that with reviews these days. You don't get that anymore.
Yeah. And he's disliked a lot of my favorite films too. He's always shot down some of the ones I loved.
Oh my God. You ever read his Usual Suspects review? 1 star. 1 star. Die Hard, my favorite movie, 2 stars. Are you kidding me? So, but he's still my favorite reviewer.
But he might be able to sell his review. He's able to pass it off with legitimacy.
Yeah.
Because like some critics and some reviewers did study film at some point, and then you've got I think nowadays most critics don't know what the hell they're talking about. They've never been on a film set. They don't know what it's like to actually try to pull off, a piece of art. And I get that a lot. I mean, and I get that a lot, but these are mostly, like wannabe critics that I know personally that have something stupid to say, and it's like, whatever. I haven't had the grace to be actually critiqued by a real critic or a real reviewer.
Not yet. I
haven't been blessed with that joy yet, to be really destroyed by somebody with some, Siskel and Ebert aren't around anymore. Who's a Roper now? So Roper's by himself.
Yeah. Roper still does, he still does reviews.
Yeah. So, maybe one day I'll be able to get destroyed if I'm even lucky. But it's funny you mentioned that. People that are dumping on other products, and it made me think. I was watching this docu-series on YouTube. There's this YouTuber that's doing this whole series. Were you ever a wrestling fan?
Yeah.
So you remember the Monday Night Wars, WWF Raw versus WCW Monday Nitro. And there's this huge long web series going on right now called Reliving the War, that some British or Irish guy is doing this entire YouTube series called Reliving the War. And he plays, to an extent through editing or whatever, he plays both episodes side by side, and you see Eric Bischoff live reading the results of Raw. Raw is like taking all these jabs at WCW, and it's a competition. The first thing that came to my mind is that someone might write a terrible review, and they're plants, they're moles, they're doing it, they're hired by somebody else to do it, to dump on this one movie because it was released by this studio, it was released by this streaming service, so it was a plant by this competitor studio or streaming service.
Ugh,
You know, and
that's ugly.
it's just like politics. I mean, it's like these constant, you know, jabs, these underlying, you know, take a look at the last 4 years of of the administration, and all these dirty tricks played by both sides. It's all a competition. It's all plants, moles. That's big business. Is destroying things within, or looking like this, having the cover of just being like this innocent bystander that didn't like the film. It's a plant, it's a mole. Most times.
I hope you're wrong. You know, I hope you are, just because it will depress me less. You know, if the majority of the people who are writing the bad reviews are just snarky people who want attention for themselves, you know, or they just don't like the look of a star, or they don't agree with executives' direction of where they're going to bring a comic book series, you know, because they just don't agree with that. You know, like I have to agree with you, but I hope we're wrong. You know.
Yeah, I mean, there's filmmakers. I mean, there's critics, there's reviewers. Who was it that just says, I don't care what it is. If it's superhero, I hate it. Oh man, I can't remember now. But anyways, there's people out there that just.
Oh, I mean, Scorsese said that.
That's what it was.
Yeah. He was the one that was that he just said he wouldn't watch it, you know, and he doesn't think Marvel movies are cinema. That's what he said. And then he might as well have just, you know, like imploded his image on the internet because of that. And he had to backtrack that too. You know, he had to backtrack it. He had to do a whole nother statement off it, and had to go out of his way to applaud the creative agencies and everyone who all the people who have made those movies possible. It's just, it wasn't for him. You know, he had to clarify that a little bit.
Let me clarify. It's not for me.
Yeah.
But you know, like you said, you know, like that first one statement you make, that's going to be really what it is. And you know, I know he's not a mole. He's not a plant. I'm pretty sure he meant it from the heart, and he might have said it in a way that he didn't mean to at first, maybe. But like, you know, he has a point. I mean, let's be honest. You know, Disney wants merch. They want amusement parks. They want, you know, they want to make this as big and as grandiose for, you know, parents to blow money on their kids for whatever reason. And so not only is there a movie, but there's a ride, there's toys, there's shirts, there's plushies, there's stuffed animals, there's cars now. I did a car commercial, and they had like a Tony Stark version of a Camry, Toyota Camry, and there's a Tony Stark, there's a Tony Stark version of some Toyota model, and it's all decked out, and it's got AI in it, and it's got, you know, like the Iron Man symbol like engraved in this car, and it's kind of cool. But let's be honest, I mean, at this point, it's all, those are great movies. I'm a big fan of Marvel and DC, huge fan, but they're pushing more than just, you know, deep stories with deep characters in extraordinary circumstances.
It's hard for me to, you know, think about, you know, like, is this high art? Is this cinema? Or is this just mass entertainment? You know, is this just a movie? You know, like I'm always, the projects that I'm working in, I'm always so in the trenches doing it. You know, it makes me think that if I was working on a Marvel film, as long as the people surrounding me are remarkable, creative, giving artists, and what we're doing is genuine, then the powers that be that are allowing us to do this work, if they want to find a way to market a Tony Stark car off of this and do this, all that kind of thing like that, great. You know, as long as, you know, you're working with people, you know, in those worlds, in those departments, that are really, you know, looking after each other and working to collaborate to do something really cool, and you're enjoying your time, because you only get one shot at this, right?
Right.
So that's the kind of level of the productions and the people that work. No matter how big of a production I'm working on, I'm always looking at it like, who are the people I'm working with? And for me, that's what makes a project worth it or not. Like that's it for me.
For me, yeah, a lot of that goes into it. But at the end of the day, we have to enjoy, we have to love what we're doing. It's got to be fun. We got into this because we loved Marvel, we loved Indiana Jones, we loved E.T., we loved Star Wars. You get on set and everyone's acting the villain. Did you grow up wanting to be the villain? Did you grow up wanting to be the bad guy? Or did you root for the good guy when you were a kid? And let's be honest, we're not cops here. We're not oil drillers. We're making films.
Yeah.
50% of the time, films are directed towards kids. When we were a kid, we were watching, like I said, Star Wars, Indiana Jones. For me, it was Christopher Reeve as Superman until I was like 9, and then it was like Michael Keaton's Batman, which was a little bit darker, a little bit grittier. But we were always rooting for the good guy. And a lot of times you get on these film sets and everyone is just dictators, douchebags. And maybe not nowadays, maybe after the Me Too movement, I think things have lightened up. I think the last few years when I've been on film sets, it's been very cohesive, very fun, very relaxed, very progressive.
It comes from the top down.
Yeah.
And it really, the tone is set by the production team, we feel the same way here when we're doing COVID compliance stuff. If a production coordinator doesn't care about wearing a mask or not, and if the AD thinks COVID is a hoax, even though they don't say that out loud, but you can tell by how they act.
You can tell.
Then your commercial shoot is going to be very, very painful experience for the COVID compliance team and for the crew, particularly the safety-minded crew. But if from the top down, there's that communication with people where they're saying, look, we want to tell our story, but we want to keep people safe at the same time, and they hold those two ideals at the same level, then it allows the COVID team to act creatively, to come up with solutions in order to be able to help make your day. And it allows the creative team to keep a sense of people's mental health while they're pushing to get the job done, and everybody wins because everybody goes home healthy. You make your day, you tell a good story, and that's, those are the productions that really work. And I hope once our vaccine comes out and people are going back to work normally, that will become the new normal. This sense of safety culture where, story and safety are, two sides of the same coin. They're both just as important as the other, and you really can't just have one without the other because they're both part of the production.
Yeah.
You can't fight each other. There's a reason why, the AICP and other, the group, the back to work agreements and everything stopped calling COVID compliance officers. We are not cops. It is not us versus them.
Right.
We're supervisors, assistants, health and safety managers. We are not cops. We are here to fill in the gaps to help make the production go, because we understand that production can't take on any more than they already are because they're already overstrung. So how can we fill in the gaps and how can we make that work while we have to do all of this? Boom, mic drop.
Yeah. Great point. Yeah, I like it. So what's next on the agenda? What's the next set of plans, the next set of goals? What's next on the agenda for Scott RIEHS, for Community Works?
Well, we have a set safety training on our website. If you go to communityworksproject.com, you can read all about our set safety trainings. We have one on the books for Wednesday and Thursday, January 6th and January 7th. There's still plenty of slots available. It's an 8-hour workshop. It's 4 hours one afternoon and 4 hours the next afternoon. and it's $200 per person. So that's $200 for 8 contact hours of interactive set safety training with safety professionals. And like I always said, we are a cooperative. So every penny that we make goes directly back out to all of our members. We have 7 members, and that covers the cost of us being able to continue to develop as well as to administer our trainings and to continue consulting with people who comes through our trainings. So if you take a community works project training, you basically become part of the community, and you can utilize us as a resource when you need to. We are here. I've met some amazing people who have come through our trainings that I've helped get jobs, that I've been there to be references for, as well as people who I've reached out to ask questions, to answer things that come up to me on sets. And I don't see that stopping anytime soon. I want to keep that going, and I'm going to continue growing my network of professionals across the country, that when the next big project comes, I know who to hire. When I'm in Texas, I got a list of location managers that I want to hire now because I know they were trained and they went through our program, and I trust them. And same thing with LA. I got contacts in Chicago. I got some amazing contacts in Philadelphia now. Even though I'm from the Philly suburbs, I've never done extensive film work in Philly. Now I feel like I'm ready, and all I've been doing is just safety trainings on Zoom. And now I feel like, yeah, if something comes up, a commercial comes up, I feel like I'd be able to call just the right people to put together a team to do that. Beyond the safety trainings, I'm going to continue working as a COVID compliance supervisor on sets here in New York. Most of the jobs that I've been taking recently are sets between 5 and 15 people, 20 people or less on a shoot for multiple days. That basically calls for a 1-person COVID compliance department team. Those are the levels of production that I'm ready to pick up my gear and go and do right now. The larger the productions, with a larger team, whether they're shooting in a studio or something like that, I think might be a little bit more of a time commitment than I'm willing to put in for a show right now. And then if I was going to work on a larger show, I would like to work in the production department for it coming up, as opposed to working at COVID compliance. So for the time being, through the spring, I'm going to be focusing on getting as many trainings on the books and to be able to continue meeting as many people as I can, working on small doc TV type COVID compliance work here in Brooklyn. And the most beautiful thing I have working for me now is I'm going to take the next 2 weeks over the holiday, and I'm not going to take any jobs, and I'm going to write. So it's been a while since I've focused on my own work. I support a lot of collaborators and a lot of friends, and it's been a while since I've been able to focus a couple of weeks on some of my own ideas. So I got some work. I got some work in front of me, and I'm really looking forward to it over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I can't agree with you more. And we mentioned it a couple of times. This whole podcast thing was a way for me to take advantage of this downtime. I know, with the exception of the likes of you, where you're staying busy, you found an opportunity to make productions continue. But I've had a lot of actors on here, writers, directors, producers, that everything, especially months ago during the start of it, everything came to a complete halt. So this was an opportunity for them to jump on, express themselves, share what they hope to get off the ground. But this was a complete networking, push myself out there also. Like, hey, when the floodgates open, I'm an actor, I'm an AD, I'm a director, I could be a producer, production coordinator, production manager. When the floodgates open, definitely keep me in mind. Acting, yeah, sure. Oh, check out my stuff. Oh, since you're going to be in my episode on my channel, check out my other stuff that I have on my channel. Maybe somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that might be interested in taking one of my projects further.
Yeah.
complete hack job on the quarantine as far as still kind of getting myself out there in a way. But like you said, man, I mean, this is the opportunity now to network, train, cross train, influence, market, network, collaborate, and then once those floodgates open.
Yeah, I guess you put it that way. I guess I really haven't said no to much of anything over the last 6, 7, 8 months. Early in the summer, I just kind of just said to myself, you know what? I'm just going to say yes to everything that comes right now. If someone invites me to this online, I'll say yes. You want to do this? Yeah. You want to join this co-op? Yeah. Okay. You want to learn how to be a safety trainer? Okay, I'll take that. Yep. You want to come on your podcast? Okay. I don't know you, but let's talk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this whole pandemic has sucked in so many ways. I mean, that goes without saying, but I think for those of us that wanted to maintain some sort of sanity and creativity and open-mindedness and communication, I mean, of all things, bottom line, communication, and just talk and share ideas and keep putting our faces out there. I mean, we all want to like put our ideas, put our brand, put our faces out there during a lull, during this, shutdown and all that stuff. We still have the whole virtual, everyone's got internet and, virtual capabilities. So, I mean, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of technology. And even this thing has far surpassed technology. And, I've mentioned this before, like post 9/11, tech, quadrupled post 9/11. And now with this, tech quadrupled again, I mean, I still have VHS tapes. I still have VCR and VHS tapes around the time of 2001, 2002. And then next thing you know, 5, 6 years later, it's streaming.
Yeah.
YouTube, and there were a couple other sites. It was all these things online. Streaming is the term now, but I think it was just online media at that time. And next thing you know, man, it's just, all these kind of evolutionary periods that we get. And the whole conspiracy between the elections in 2016, that kind of like pushed social media and, online presences and that sort of deal then.
Yeah.
And then now it was progressed even further. So yeah, I mean, this is the opportunity now to network across the globe. I mean, I've had guests on here from Britain and India and Singapore, just
That's awesome.
And got to work around that time difference, but it's this bizarre phenomena that I just said, screw it. I've had some colleagues of mine saying like, we've tried this whole podcast thing before, even virtually before the quarantine. We tried it virtually. I was bringing, I had two phone calls going on at the same time, Google Hangouts and a Skype, and two guys. All three of us were both on Google Hangouts and Skype, but I could only bring one video in from Hangouts and then one video in from Skype, and then I was coming in from an actual production camera, and it was just a shit show. And then now with this, it's like, screw it, buy the unlicensed full platinum version of Zoom, multiple people on at the same time, and you can like swap videos, and it made the whole tech easier. And then I was like, dude, we're gonna do it again. And I had some colleagues like, but what is your format, and what is this, and like, do you have a theme, and like, what are the trends? And they're like, dude, screw all that, man. Let's just jump on, shoot the shit. And things seem to be going well, but at the same time, since it's going well for me, it's kind of going well for millions of other, like we're so inundated with like, these startup podcasts now.
Yeah.
That it kind of hurts, but it kind of helps, but who knows? Just do. But at the end of the day, you got to pull the trigger on something, and you just do something. And you never know what you're going to strike gold at.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
So if, I could very well see, if I've made contact and continue to do consulting or, maybe, you know, work here and there with, let's say, 50 people who I've met over the past, you know, 8 months. It's a lot of people, but like one or two of them, you know, a couple of years from now, suddenly it's like, oh, this is the big project that now we can like build the, you know, our mid careers off of. You know, it's like that happened because we took that step, we took that leap, you know, we tried something, you know, and knowing that, you know, the only thing that we're going to get out of this is what we put into it.
Exactly.
You know, and that's what you're doing with this. It's, you know, it's what we are collectively doing with CWP. In order to be able, not CWP is not all of our, it's none of our, you know, full-time jobs. You know, we're all production professionals. We're all trying to get back into the real world to be able to continue working with people out in the field. But it's been a great way to be able to keep our focus and to be able to get people trained to stay safe and to keep their crew safe and to keep their families safe while until there's a vaccine, and then after a vaccine to help promote safety culture for the long haul. That's the goal.
Yeah. And listen, you know, I think it was back like maybe 2012. I decided to pull the trigger and go full-time freelance back in 2009.
Okay.
But as the rise of, you know, these crew up sites and these casting sites, I must have done 100 applications / emails a day or every other day, which would lead to 5 to 10 follow-ups, which was about a full week's worth of work the following week. But kept doing that. I kept doing 50 to 100 applications every day to every other day, every other day, every other day, every other day, which would fill up that week or that fill up that month. Or I would get that AD job on a film that lasted 3 weeks. But keep sending out headshots, keep sending out resumes, keep sending out AD or crew or acting applications, emails, casting notice responses, applications every day, every other day, 50 to 100 of them. And then I get a week's filled, I get a month filled, I get a week filled, I get a month filled. And that's how it worked. And so now in this case, it's networking. I'm going to like ask 100 people to come on the podcast. I might get 50. And then out of those 50 guests, 10 of you guys are going to remember me. I'm going to remember all you guys, of course. Mm-hmm. You're on my show. But 10 of you guys are going to remember me down the road. Hey, man, come on my podcast. Hey, man, be an AD on something. I need you to play a cop. I loved our conversation. I looked at your stuff, and now here it is 2 years later. Come play a cop on something. Okay, no, yep. Absolutely. Hell yeah. And it's going to be like, you know, this odd creative interweaving of just networking, collaborative.
Have you had a situation yet where you've met someone on this show or on Zoom and then you've seen them in person and they don't look like you thought they did on the box? I've had that situation a couple of times recently where I've seen people where one of my coworkers, I knew he was tall, but when I finally saw him in person, I was like, I didn't realize you were that tall. I mean, it is so funny, you know, because I feel like I get to know people so well in the boxes, and then I see them in person on a set, and I was like, wow, this is like, I don't know, that's a unique situation, that moment that I never experienced before, that I've experienced like 3 or 4 times over the last couple of months. It's been wild to see people for the first time after seeing them in the box for so long.
No. So there was an acting gig I had maybe a year ago, and then COVID happened, and I reached out to a whole bunch of people. And one of the people I reached out to come on the podcast after the fact was one of my co-stars in this crime episode. Mm-hmm. And so then he was on the podcast. We were kind of, you know, in just one episode he was on. And then we just happened to be on another acting gig a couple of weeks ago. Finally was back on set as an actor. And of course, everything COVID compliant. And it was actually a military industrial project. So it was like super COVID compliant. They were playing 0 games. Yeah. But you know, but I just saw him again on set again. And so in that regard, not really to the extent you're talking about, because I met him in person first, and then had him on the show, then met him again. But I think the cohesiveness was a little bit more there, but also just us being excited to be back on set, excited that, you know, things were kind of getting back to semi-productive.
Yeah.
He was on the podcast. We were able to share our frustration then because that was probably May. I had him on the podcast. And so we were super frustrated, definitely locked down, nothing going on, super boredom, super cabin fever, super frustration, maybe a little bit of depression of just, when is this thing going to end?
Yeah.
He was on the show then, but now we're on this new gig and we're back on set, you know, making some money, able to act, able to, you know, play our roles. And it was just, we were having a blast on set, and we were having a blast on set before the quarantine. But I think there was this extra, we're back at it, man. You know, it's like,
and you can't take it for granted.
Yeah.
You really can't take it for granted. You know, you get paid to act. It's a dream, you know? I mean, that's you know,
and that's another bonus to it. And I've mentioned that on the show 1,000 times. I've had people criticize my work, and they're like, when are you going to be in a real, but when are you going to get like a starring role in a real show? And I'm like, dude, I'm on TV and it pays the bills. Am I a millionaire? No. And, you know, am I the lead in, like, you know, a big Hollywood blockbuster yet? No. But dude, I'm on TV and I'm the lead of this episode that's on freaking TV, and I'm getting paid to act. I'm getting paid to play pretend. You can't knock that. You know what I'm saying? You're absolutely right. Like, that's,
it doesn't matter how far you get. There's always going to be a way that someone can knock you down again, or like be like, yeah, did you do this? Yeah, it doesn't matter. You know, it breaks my heart when I hear about people who have made it, who still suffer from anxiety and depression, you know, in all different ways, whether or not it has to do with, I don't know, with the industry or just with them, or where their background or their environment. There's always something that can bring someone down. So if, you know, we can look in our own environments, in our own circle of influence, that we are happy and healthy doing what we're doing, and we can provide for our families while we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, and if we get higher than that and we become famous, you'll be more grounded.
Yeah.
You know, because you have that basis of support, and you have that perspective, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, it's extremely important for me to remain humble and positive.
Yeah.
And grounded. But a bad habit that I have, and I'll admit it, a bad habit I'll have is I'll have somebody like that say something to me. And I'm like, what do you got? Compared to what? Well, when are you gonna make it bigger? When are you gonna do something bigger? And I'm like, compared to you? And then they get a bad attitude, and they're like, oh, you're cocky. And I'm like, I'm not cocky. I didn't say shit until you started running your mouth. And then I'll be quick to say something back. You know, oh, when are you going to work on a real show? And I'm like, compared to what? Compared to what do you, when was the last time you came out with a track? When was the last time that you wrote something? Are you going to finish that book you've been talking about for 15 years? Oh, I see where a big movie man. And I'm like, I didn't say I was. I never said I was. I'm just saying I'm possibly doing a little bit more than you are. You're quick to critique until you start getting that criticism back. And that's a bad habit of mine. I know I should just be like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. But I'm real quick to snap back, you know,
you may be working on that your whole life. You know?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's just, you know, that, but the fact that you at least recognize that's something that you might as well work on, then that's you're 3 steps ahead of other people who might not even realize that the way that you react to people is a problem or an issue, or it could be detrimental in some capacity. You know, so just the fact that you're able to articulate that, That's great. Yeah,
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head. I'm gonna be wasting my time with those comments for the rest of my life. Right. Yeah. Keep it focused, keep it grounded. No, you're right. You're right. Now, I've been meaning to change my approach to this question because I even have a different approach to this question. But if I were to say to you the new normal, what comes to mind when I mention the new normal to you?
I'm like a broken record. Safety culture, safety culture, safety culture. I foresee the new normal as, you know, people are talking about mental health on set more often. That from the creative side, from the creative producing side to the logistics and the line producing side, that people are talking about how they can creatively help each other out in order to be able to make the day, to make stakeholders happy, to be able to actually still make the shoot happen in a way that is looking after for everyone's livelihood, and both physically and mentally. I think that that's something that I could foresee happening from my perspective, because those are the people that I want to work with. And those are the jobs that I want to help produce, that I want to help make. You know, I feel like I could foresee myself being much more selective with the jobs that I take after COVID. And I am going to base those jobs based off of, you know, the perspective that the production crew, you know, and the executives have in relation to safety culture. And I can articulate that a lot better now based off of the last 8 months of training that I've been doing. You know, like I feel like I have a little bit more clout in that world now that I can articulate what the hierarchy of controls are on a set, and why one set of controls is more important than the other, why administrative and behavioral controls like social distancing or testing or continuity of operations or paid sick leave is more effective than just giving someone a mask and wearing PPE. You know, I can articulate that like that, and I can give concrete evidence as to why that's the way to work and why you need to work that way if you want to be effective in the business, and how it's good business. Like that's, you know, I feel much more confident about that before. And a year ago, I wouldn't even know how to talk about it. I would just take whatever job came my way. Not anymore. I know too much now, you know, and I feel like I'm ready to be more of a leader on set than I was before. So hopefully I see a change in safety culture, you know, particularly here in New York, you know, on small, low budget shoots in particular, because that's just, you know, what I have the most experience on, where I'll probably be able to get work, you know, moving forward until the next big job comes along.
Yeah. I mean, in the last 8 months, I was able to comfortably and it was like a comfort to just say, I'm not taking any of these gigs, you know? And it was like, yeah, but I gotta, like, I want to stay relevant as an actor. I want to stay relevant socially. I want to stay relevant financially. I want to stay relevant within these casting directors' minds and in these directors' minds. But no, it took, and it didn't take much, but it was just this. It was like this epiphany where it's just like, I'm not taking any gigs on set outside of a certain mile range, outside of a certain pay rate, with a very few small distinctions. It was just like, no, I'm not taking any acting gigs. I'm not taking any gigs on set unless I'm a COVID compliance officer. There was so much high, and I brought it up on the show before, but you know, years ago I got into live streaming, and I got into remote work, and then I started doing the podcast. And because of the podcast, I was getting all these virtual corporate industrial gigs that I was comfortable enough with that. And it was just, and I think I'm falling within that same mindset you're saying that you brought up, where it was just this switch, that like this epiphany mixed with discipline, mixed with honesty, mixed with just the determination to keep my wife and my infant son safe. Just can't take any gigs on set. And with the exception of that one acting gig that was a couple of weeks ago, when I started grilling them kind of in a way. I'm an actor, but I'm like, COVID, are you guys COVID compliant? Oh yeah, this is a DOD project, so they're not playing any freaking games. We're shooting on base, so they don't play any games. This, and I'm like, okay.
But this is something also that we, someone who who goes into training with CWP, who comes to our meetings, like I want everybody to walk out of any of the trainings or any of the meetings that we do, knowing that anybody on set, if you're up for a job, if you have a call with a producer, you should always know that you have the ability to influence the production safety plan. You do. Everyone does. Everyone's part of it. So if you're up for a job and someone's talking to you, there's no reason why you can't write an email. This sounds great. Can you tell me more about your safety plan? And if they say, well, what are you talking about? We'd be like, well, what guidelines are you following? Like who is in charge of that? Can you tell me about the COVID compliance team? There are questions you can ask, and you can give feedback based off of your own experiences working at the DOD, the job. You have experiences. That if I was a COVID compliance officer, I would like to be able to talk to everybody on set, at least briefly, individually, before going to set, being like, what's your experience been like? So then I know a little bit more of how to work with you, and you can get that going as a professional yourself if you're up for a job. Like we're all in this together. We can all influence the safety plan, and we can do it in a proactive way. That I think that if you do it the right way, or at least in a proactive way and not in a condescending way, that is going to be a selling point for you to get the job. That's the type of person that I would want to hire on set, someone who has safety culture in mind.
Yeah.
That's like, of course I want to hire them over someone that's so cavalier and be like, yeah, I'm fine. I get it. Do what you got to do, but I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Not now.
I mean, listen, everybody has a right to just turn down a job. You don't have to take a job.
Yeah.
Things sound fishy. I need the money. Yeah, you don't need the money that bad.
Yeah.
And take it from me, things will fall into place. If you just keep persevering, you keep, pushing forward in that same applying to gigs. Somebody calls back, hey, like you said, hey, what is your safety? What are your safety procedures?
Yeah. And
if you don't get a warm and fuzzy, I'm gonna have to pass.
Yeah.
Oh, we want you. I'm gonna have to pass because I'm not getting that warm and fuzzy. But listen, I've been fired time and time again for being that guy. I've been fired as an AD a couple of times. There was another gig I was fired. I was not fired for being an AD, but then this email came out and everybody was decimated, and especially me, I was criticized for, taking over directing the film. And I'm like, listen, bro, when that film comes out, it's still going to say written and directed by you. And 17 credits later, it's going to say first assistant director, Glenn Nelson. At the end of the day, you're still getting the writer director credit, not me. But there were safety issues, and I'm stepping in and I'm saying, nope, we're gonna break this down simpler. We're gonna dumbify the shit out of this. We're not gonna make our day. We're running over schedule and there's safety issues. I'm gonna take over, shoot this, cut, shoot that, cut, shoot that, cut. After some decent editing, it's gonna look like a Jackie Chan fight scene. Don't worry about it. But it's not going to be a Jackie Chan fight scene. And plus we got like 20 minutes, and then we're going into overtime. So, but I've been kicked off a couple of sets for being, super safe. What's taking so long? Let's move along. And this shit needs to be safe. This shit can't be like, psychotic. So listen, you don't need to take the job if you don't get a warm and fuzzy from the job, from the producer. If you don't get a warm and fuzzy from the producer, from the director, from the EPs, from any of the other staff, speak up or just don't take the job.
Yeah.
And especially now, I mean, but listen, I had to make that choice from April to November. I wasn't taking any gigs except for remote work.
Yep.
And that's why I started the podcast. And that's why I was trying to push this whole new service that I can offer, this whole new skill set. I can do a shitload of remote stuff, man. You're a DJ? I will walk you through how we will do a live DJ set on whatever, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitch, whatever. We can rock this thing out live. You got a band? You guys are comfortable being in the room? You guys will have a live concert on whatever platform, whatever streaming service. I will do it. I had to flip gears because I had to I'm an actor. I'm a filmmaker. I like shooting stuff. I like blowing stuff up. I like shooting guns. I like car chases. I like fight scenes. I like, getting thrown through windows. I like interrogating the bad guys in that interrogation room. I love being the detective, grilling a criminal. I love the courtroom scenes. You can't handle the truth. That's my shit, man. Time out. It's not happening this year. End of freaking story. Now we got COVID compliance supervisors. Now we've got, we have that understanding that we're going to have to cut cast and crew down to a third.
Yep.
Well, did you say? You said something anywhere between 5 and 15 people total on set?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about, interview shoots or, documentary B-roll shoots.
Sure.
Yeah. So we have, and that's bare bones.
Bare bones.
The DP is also gaffing. No AD on set. You got your I'm talking about I'm the COVID guy, but I'm helping load in, load out. And trying to be able to make sure everyone's staying in their lanes, that we're not on top of each other. And so it's
that's where you got to start kickstarting some creativity, thinking outside that box. Think outside the box. Oh man, but no, you can still tell your story. Let's figure out how to.
On every one of the shoots, there's also some exec that is zooming in just to keep an eye on stuff. And they would be in Video Village, but not today. So
they're zooming in,
and you're dealing with time zones. And
yep, time to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And to me, I love that shit. And I have a web series out. Pre-COVID, we were ultra below the line, ultra cutting costs, super and it's a recurring joke on this podcast when I'm talking about this stuff. It's not even a skeleton crew. It's like a rib cage crew. It's like a bone marrow skeleton crew. It's not even that, the skeleton crew. It's so minimal. It was like 2, 3, maybe 4 people on set. And I said, I came up with a slick idea. I'll send you some links to it offline, but came up with some slick ideas to come up with a web series, super ultra low budget. And now it's definitely something that works now. But it's that mindset. It's because for years I was like, I have a couple of scripts. I can only shoot it for $50,000. It can only be done with $50,000 with a full crew. And people like my brother are like, dude, just do it. Figure out a way. Get a crew together and make it happen. It doesn't have to be for $50,000. It could be for $5,000, $10,000. Stubbornness, hard-headedness. And then it was like, you wake up one morning, 5 years later, you have not produced a single freaking thing, except for you worked on other people's stuff. As a professional, you're still working, but when are you going to make your own thing? And
Yeah.
it's like, you got to think outside that box. And so when it comes to like these new productions, it's like bare bones. All right, how do we still make that work? It's possible.
It's been a lot of fun reading about how the larger productions, particularly here in New York, have gotten back in and be able to maintain filming, broadcast TV, filling the studios back up, and working through this winter. From the writing room down, the people are writing more scenes to be able to take place in the studios as opposed to on location in the streets. People are, yeah. So it's like how, okay, so we have access to areas that we have control over. It's like, how can we, do that and make that the majority of what we're going to be shooting, so, and it's not like they don't really have the choice. It's like the outdoor dining stuff is still set up outside of New York here. There's no place to park trucks on locations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult to be able to shoot on location indoors in smaller areas, that you don't have the control of the ventilation over to be able to be up to the standards of all the protocols that are set up in place for the unions. So it's like they've had to change the way that they think about how they tell stories in order to be able to make these broadcast dates this spring. It's fascinating, and it's actually really, really cool.
Yeah.
So it's not just the smaller stuff; it's the bigger stuff have had to change the way that they're creatively producing in order to be able to do the same level of 120 person crew to be able to keep going.
And it's the independent filmmakers that have been inspiring that since I was, the first thing that comes to mind is like Swingers,
Mm-hmm.
Reservoir Dogs, El Mariachi, Blair Witch Project. These filmmakers thought outside the box, and Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, a heist movie where you never see the heist. The whole film took place in a warehouse after the fact. And it's still, to me, it's one of his best, top 3, his best.
Yeah.
Blair Witch. I mean, some college kids right out of college started putting together, some money to make a feature film. Well, okay, they made a film based on making a botched documentary, one with a 16 millimeter camera, one with a VHS camera. And they even then, when this whole found footage idea of horror movies or found footage movies in general was so fresh, they even found like these creative ways within that. They were creating it, and what was unique is the person with the 16 millimeter film camera that had no audio on it went down in the basement first, got cracked in the skull. But you're still seeing that footage, but they're using the audio from the VHS camera when she's running down the steps. And so it was vice versa. My bad. He had the VHS camera with the built-in mic. He gets cracked in the head in the basement, right? She's running down with a 16 millimeter. As she's running down, her audio is growing louder and louder, and the tension's building and building because she's getting close to the other camera, right? And it's like all these. That was never ever a thing. And they first, out of the blue, not only did they create found footage horror movies, they invented this unique little effect because she's getting closer and closer to his VHS camera with a built-in mic. Her scream is getting louder and louder as she's getting closer and closer to that point of horror. And then
I got to revisit Blair Witch Project because it's been a long time since I've seen it.
The original, ending was so freaking horrifying because it was the technological advances within its time. They were mixing a 16 millimeter camera with no audio, with a mini DV camera, right? Built-in mic. And they were mixing those formats, and they were experimenting with that at the time, experimenting, not only creating found footage, but experimenting with the found footage genre as they were creating it.
Yeah.
And so now you've got Fox, NBC, CBS, CNN. You've got ABC, NBC, CBS having to like re-experiment.
Yep.
Okay. And that's the beauty of these challenges. And that's what I've always loved was like re-experimenting. And listen, I got no freaking money. Scott, I got no freaking money. I want to make this thing. Let's figure out how to make it with $0. The only thing that we can do is invest, 3 days out of our lives.
Right.
You know what I could do as a producer? I'll order Grubhub. That'll be your payment. Pizza and beer. That's what we're on, a pizza and beer budget. We create a couple of episodes of something. We create the short film. How do we do it with $0? Oh, here's an idea. Oh, what if we did this? What if we did that? Get rid of this. Make these 3 characters just one character. Oh shit. Okay. What are they, schizo, or is it just they're all, or this one character just has 3 different goals in life instead of 3 people with 1 goal each? Kind of like rewrite. Look at like what we can pull off with what kind of gear we have. It's just experimentation, thinking outside the box. We've all in college, we all made the soup to nuts film.
Mm-hmm.
Your conservative narrative, your basic ABC film. We've done that. We've been there before, and we might have did it on a huge level. I've been an AD on some big stuff, on some little stuff, and everything in between. So I think it's like, okay, let's watch other people's shit. What was it? I had a previous guest telling me they were watching Blacklist, and I think they finished out Blacklist animated because of quarantine. Well, yeah. Well, they probably took the idea from Tarantino's Kill Bill Volume 1 when they did Oren Ishii's background story as an anime, because why not? The second someone does something remotely like cool, that's a thing now. That's a thing.
Well, I mean, Tarantino is also a master at taking all the really cool stuff that people have done and then reinventing it in a way and making it its own.
Yep.
Running that fine line of stealing an homage that he does better than anybody who's ever lived. It's like because he's so good and he's so smart and he's so skilled, that he can steal something from somebody and call it an homage, and people will love him for it. And so do I. Because I love everything that Tarantino does, and his movies make me want to watch other movies that he's taken ideas from. Mm-hmm. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, he's definitely really good at taking ideas from and making it its own.
Yeah. Well, if you could leave us with one bit of advice, some takeaway advice, or one point to make, what would that be?
One big point to make. Be kind to each other. Just be kind to each other. Everybody, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it to hold grudges. It's not worth it to work with people that you don't enjoy being around. Be kind, and if it's not reciprocated, then go a different direction. Work with other people, or spend time with other people. I think that's the main thing I'd say. Please continue to be kind to each other, especially when we come back out of quarantine and all this ends. Those are the people that I'd like to be able to continue working with.
Absolutely. Yeah. Listen, going back to the Marvel movies, right? I love the Marvel movies. Those continue to inspire me. But in real life, if you're going to make a decision about how to treat somebody, how to work with somebody, how to run a set, how to run the country, what would Luke Skywalker do? What would Steve Rogers choose to do? What would his decision be? I know they're fake characters.
Yeah.
But growing up, we wanted to be those guys. So now that here we are, we're grown up. What would Luke's decision be? What would Steve Rogers' decision be? What would Indiana Jones want to do? What would his decision be if it was like be the good guy or be the bad guy? You know what I mean? And that's always been like, there was somebody else that said, imagine imagine you're the star of a movie. Make your actions be that. If your life is the movie, make your action. What would your actions be?
I like that. I like that a lot.
You see what I'm
That's a good
saying?
one.
Are you
That's
going
a
to be
good
the? Are you going to be a good guy? Are you going to be the bad guy? Are you going to make the right decision, the wrong decision? Are you going to be an asshole, or are you going to be like, or are you going to be like a firm, tough son of a bitch, but still, what would maybe not Clint Eastwood? What would John McClane's decision be? John McClane might not take shit from nobody, but he's not going to be the bad guy. He's trying to be the good guy, but still, he's going to bust some heads if he has to.
At least he's trying.
At least he's trying.
Right? At least he's trying.
Yippee-ki-yay, man. You know?
Yeah, at least he's trying.
I mean, I love, and it's funny you mentioned that's one of your favorite movies.
If someone had a gun to my head and said, "What's your favorite movie?" I'd say Die Hard. If I really had to pick a favorite movie, like I mean, I got 100 favorite movies, but if the question always comes, if I really had to pick one, I'd probably go back to Die Hard.
Yeah, and I just love that moment. He's a good guy, but he's this average guy, struggling to, like, he was in the first one anyway, he was really like struggling, clawing at every inch that he could to survive, to save other lives, to take out each and every bad guy he could. But there was that thing where I forget, I can't even remember the actor's real name, but he was the long blonde haired guy, right? And he comes in, he's smashing his gun on something, and in
the movie, his name's like Fritz.
Fritz. Fritz is like slamming his gun on something, and he's kicking shit around, and he storms off. And Holly starts grinning. She goes, "What?" She goes, "What are you grinning about?" He goes, "John's alive.
He's alive. He's still alive."
Only John could piss a guy off that fucking bad. I know John's alive. Only John could piss somebody off that bad. And it's like that was always kind of like the good guy I wanted to be. I'm there, John McClane's way more realistic than the Luke Skywalkers. Well, Luke Skywalker was kind of realistic in Return of the Jedi, where he almost slipped. He almost slipped, and he almost chose the dark side. He almost slipped, and then he remembered his path. But John McClane was always a good guy, always determined to be the good guy. But he's fallible. He's a smart ass. He's a foul-mouthed smart ass, borderline alcoholic. But he knows what is right and what's wrong. And
he's also just an astonishingly present character. Like every moment in that movie, you can see that he is 100% in tune with the situation right in front of him. And it's just task after task after task after task. Okay, this is what's happening right now. What do I do? Well, I do this. Okay, I'm still alive. This is happening right now. Now what do I do? Okay, I have to do this. Oh, I have to pretend to be like this right now because this is what's going on. Mm-hmm. And if I don't play this cool, I'm going to die. Now I'm here. Now I'm getting blown off the building. And it's just like again and again and again and again.
And
it's amazing.
And there's moments where he's willing to sacrifice himself.
Yeah.
There's moments where he fails to save another life or two. There's moments where he sacrifices his safety to save others. That's why he got the people off the roof. But you're right. There's another discipline to that. It's the task at hand. It's checking boxes. Too many people in life are trying to think of 40 million things all at once. They're always late. They're always forgetful. They never show up on time. They're trying to do too many things at once. And sometimes it's about what's right in front of you. Check this box. Check this box. And then it's turn on the lights. And then it's set the shot. And then it's rehearse. But now there's a couple more boxes now. Now it's safety and health concerns. And is it a decent set? And is there space? And can we work with a certain amount of crew? And then it's turn on the lights, turn on the camera, turn on the mics, rehearse, second rehearse, adjustments, action. And too many times people are just trying to rush. Too many people are trying to do too many things at one time. And you're absolutely right. His goal his decisions on checking boxes are always to be the good guy, to defeat the bad guy. But what's right in front of him? Check a box, check a box, check a box. And that and don't and oh, maybe 2 boxes to check at once. Fuck it. Let's do our best, man. I'm only one guy. I'm not with no superhero powers, you know, but yeah, really, really something, you know, but again, I mean, like, what would John McClane do at the end of the day? When it comes to your decisions, when it comes to you running a set, you know, being a boss, being the president, being a husband, what would John McClane do at the end of the day? He'd want to make his opinions heard, but he'd want to be the good guy, not the bad guy. Let's think about what a good guy would do. So I don't know. Great point, man. Be kind to each other. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Scott Reese, I can't thank you enough. Being kind to people, looking out for people's safety and welfare. What's any plugs, links, socials you want to put out there?
Well, I do have a movie. It just so happens that during quarantine and all this year, a movie that I'm associate producer on has finally been released. It had a limited festival run this past summer into the fall, and you can find it online. It's called American Thief. It is an amazing movie that was shot over the span of 5 years here in New York. It's a hybrid documentary narrative about teenage hackers here in New York that they uncover a plot to affect the 2016 presidential election. You know, so it's a lot of the movie hits really, really close to home. It's extremely relevant for the time that we live in, and you can check it out and you can rent it online and check it out. So this is one of the movies that, you know, while, you know, it was shot over the span of over several years in the city, and I was lucky enough and privileged enough to be able to help take the movie its final steps over the past year to be able to make the cut that you're going to see if you rent the movie online. It's writer-director Miguel Severa is a very close friend and collaborator of mine. So hopefully we're going to be working on a lot of projects in the future together. Producer Michelle Stolnicki, unbelievable producer who really kind of made this movie happen with nothing but grit and determination. And co-writer Missy Hernandez, who is a film teacher at Columbia College in Chicago, is the co-writer and producer. You know, I love all 3 of them, and really, really proud of the project. So that's the one, you know, outside film that's been done right now that's outside a Community Works project that I would definitely wish everyone to take a look at. It's a really great movie.
Awesome. Well, also, before I let you go, you mentioned you were going to write. You're going to take a couple of weeks to write. What can you tell us a little bit about that? No spoilers, obviously.
No, you know, I love historical fiction, you know, and I've been there are a couple of baseball leagues that played here in New York in the late 1800s, early 1900s that don't exist anymore. You know, I've always wanted to see a film that takes place as kind of an everyman on a really rough and tumble baseball team in the 1890s. You know, that's kind of like trying to, you know, compete with the major leagues, but not quite. You know, I always thought that would be a fun thing to see. You know, so, you know, I got a couple of books that have been on my book stand for a while that kind of, you know, talk about the history of the leagues, you know, and what happened to them and some of the amazing people who played in those leagues and what it was like. So I think that's something that I've been kind of working on in my brain for a long time that I'm going to see if I can come up with a treatment or 2, you know. So that's the immediate goal. Or I might do something completely different. But that's kind of what those books are sitting next to, you know, and you know, I'm so jazzed that the Major League Baseball just announced that they're going to include all of the Negro Leagues statistics as Major League Baseball statistics coming up this next year, and they're going to have to re-release and rewrite all the history books. It's just like, whoa, okay. It's just like, yeah, we all know that there were a bunch of major leagues in the first half of the 20th century. Now it's official.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, it's just like, I love this stuff.
That's unique.
And you can go back even farther and farther than that, you know, but particularly here in New York, there used to be like 5 or 6 different baseball leagues all at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds definitely intriguing, and I can't wait to see what comes of it.
Yeah, we'll see. And then Community Works Project. We have trainings on the books, January 6th and January 7th. And I'm going to be facilitating. Like I said, it's an 8-hour training over the spread over 2 days. And we're going to talk about, you know, everything you can think of that will put the power in your own hands to help keep you and your crew safe, no matter what department you work on. You know, I think it's definitely worth it for, you know, production professionals of every level to be able to check out our site, and you can reach out info@Community Works Project with any questions you might have.
Awesome. Well, Scott, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and you know, this was a long, meaty, inspiring, informative episode, and I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing all your knowledge and all your experience and all your points with us. And it was a blast having you on. I learned a lot. I'm continuing to be inspired by you, and like my previous guests, I'm just continue to be inspired and motivated to just you know, keep doing something, whatever it is. Just keep doing something. Just do shit, right? Create shit.
Keep it up, man.
Yeah.
Len, it was a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, it was great meeting you. Great having you on, Scott. I can't thank you enough to my viewers. I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. And until next time, you know what to do.